Welcome back, and now let's get the show on the road. In 2019, the World Economic Forum noted that the Nigerian government must tackle 5 security challenges: Boko Haram, farmer herders crisis, the Islamic movement of Africa, Niger Delta, and Cameroon. These insecurity challenges, the forum advised, must be dealt with before Nigeria can achieve its true potential. Meanwhile, amidst what the U.S. government described as the worsening security situation across Nigeria, it has advised its citizens not to travel to many states in Nigeria for security reasons. These reasons include terrorism, kidnapping, civil unrest, and maritime crime. So what does all that mean in concrete terms? Well, we have experts with us this morning who are going to break all that down for us. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Onyekachi Adekoya, who is a security consultant.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And joining us from our studios in Abuja, it's my pleasure to welcome former DSS Director, Mr. Mike Ejiofor. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us this morning. Let me start with you, Mr. Adekoya. So what do you make of this advice that the U.S. is giving its citizens? Does it have any merit?
Well, I was a bit surprised at the advice, knowing that the American state had taken now what you call the American first approach. So my first thinking was, why are they putting out the advice now? Be that as it may, America has a responsibility to its own citizens. So it's part of the standard advisory they put out from time to time. And it's not really news that the unrest in the Maghreb, just above the, what you call the Sahel region, is beginning to affect the Northwest, and it's part of the problems you're having in the Northeast. And particularly when you look at the instability in Mali. And some analysts have also posed that if care is not taken, Mali is not really far from the Northwest, and the issues happening there may begin to spill over. So I think that's what the American government is talking about. So that's not news to us at all. It may be news to some people, but it's not news. So yeah, of a truth, there are issues there, and the issues are beginning to morph into something serious, which is why you are beginning to see a number of military operations going into the Northwest.
Okay, now, we are Nigerians. We live here. We don't have any other place to run to. Now, are we tackling these security issues like we should? We heard in the course of, at the beginning of the week, calls again for the security chiefs to be fired, and they actually had a meeting with the president. Where is all that getting us? Where are we headed?
I think that we must first understand the complexities of the problems that we have. We are facing a hydra-headed insurgency in the Northeast, which has now morphed and moved over to the Northwest, and we're beginning to see some incursions into the North Central. The talk about service chiefs is neither here nor there. We have the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and so maybe discussions need to tilt a bit towards the CEC. Remember also that the service chiefs are just appointees of the president, you know, and when I saw the statement from the National Assembly, you know, I think they fell a bit short of the mark of where their address should really be going to. Okay, so asking the service chiefs to be replaced, it doesn't really mean anything. On ground, there are real issues. There are issues of shortage of personnel, paucity of equipment. Nigeria is a very big country. The topography of certain parts of the country, you know, when we talk about security, we talk about spaces and places. We sometimes sitting down in the comforts of our room don't understand the challenges that the military is facing on ground. You know, so if we begin to talk about the issues on ground, the service chiefs are are not really at the heart of the things we should be addressing. The questions I love to ask every time is, number one, we have several battalions operating in the northeast and some in the northwest. Do they have the equipment that they require to prosecute this war? Question number one. Question number two, do they have the intelligence or what you call local intelligence that they need to aid in their preparation and response to some of these issues? Someone just rightly said that the military, 80% of the time, is flying blind in the north generally because of the issue of intelligence.
Speculation.
Not speculation, and I'll give you an
Or
instance.
allegation.
So it's not, okay, look at it this way. The military is going to operate in some remote village somewhere. They've been called out that these insurgents are about to attack a certain location. On their way to respond, they get ambushed. So let me paint this picture for you. Take for
Coincidence?
instance, not coincidence. Most times, again, they check. Sometimes they also check. Sometimes they have double agents, even people giving them information themselves. It's a difficult terrain. And sometimes these insurgents understand the terrain better than the military coming in. So they know you have to come at them with vehicles, at least your light attack vehicles. They know. They go and set up camp in places that makes a nonsense of your own equipment. So if you're coming in to meet them, you will be challenged meeting them. And they meet you at the intersection where they have the higher ground and they fire at you. Just last week, we lost about 13 soldiers, 3 officers. And that's exactly what has happened. So intelligence is very important. What is the DSS doing to aid the military? What is the NIA doing to aid the military? The military has the Directorate of Military Intelligence, and sometimes they are having to source intelligence themselves. They are challenged because sometimes also the communities don't know who to side with, whether to side with the government or to side with the insurgents. They side with the government. Does the government has the capacity to really protect them? There are a lot of ungoverned spaces in that area, and people have life-altering decisions to make every day, whether to side with the government or to side with the insurgents. More importantly, the people who we call insurgents are from these local communities. Nyota, for example, if you come from Ikeja and you know the military is coming to attack in Ikeja, and for some reason, your distant relative or somebody you know is among the insurgents. For example, I'm just saying, let's situate this in the case of the Northeast. If you see the military coming, will you alert that your distant relative from your mother's side or your father's side to the fact that the military is coming or not?
No, I won't.
No, that's if it's you. But you see, these are people's children. They are people's cousins, relatives, and the rest. So the military is also challenged with the fact that there's positive human intelligence. So most times on those patrols, they are also having to go blind. Okay. Ask any military person.
All right. Mr. Jeffo, I do know that one of those times you came on one of our shows, you talked about interagency relations. Now, from what Mr. Onyekachi has talked about here, he's talked about how this question of issues on ground, personnel, equipment, but he centered on information, intelligence, and how it's as if that's a major, major challenge before you even talk about equipment and personnel. Do you agree with him?
To some extent, I want to commend Onyekachi there for his submissions. But also, it goes beyond that. I will tell you right away that, yes, intelligence drives all operations. And like the alert given by General Anderson, you see, it's nothing new, just like Onyekachi has said. There's nothing special about it. If you recall that the State Security Service and the National Intelligence Agency some time ago alerted Nigerians of infiltration of foreigners, especially from the Maghreb, following because these insurgents were losing ground in Syria and Lebanon. So the tendency for them to be coming down to Nigeria with Mali, they're not coming direct to Nigeria. All the countries there in the sub-region are affected. It's not only Nigeria. And you also recall that, like he also said, intelligence, I said, drives all operations. And when the state security gives intelligence, Onyekachi has also pointed it out. At times, our military go blind despite the intelligence given. So it becomes a challenge. Now, if you look at the region, there are problems between the various groups, the insurgent groups, the ISWAP, the Boko Haram, the ISIS, and the look. They are all struggling for space and leadership, which the State Security Service has been able to establish. But the problem is, my challenge with the American raising alarm on this issue is that if you begin to give us such information, it creates panic and apprehension among the populace. So it's not as if the agencies are not aware of this, but they try to manage it at their own level so that you don't create apprehension. Like one of the regrets I had, in service, was this, that the state, in my 35 years, it just of recent, from 2015 or 2010, that the Secret Service, that's the State Security Service, now gives information on what they do. It's an agency that thrives just in secrecy. They don't tell you what they do. But if I tell you the number of assaults that have been foiled, or what has been brought to check, Nigerians might be wondering, if you give this to the public space, there will be problems. So I'm not in line with what America has done. But you also remember that while he was addressing, General Anderson was addressing, he established the relationship, the agency relationship between the agencies, the security agencies, the intelligence agencies, and also the exchange of intelligence between America and Nigeria. So to that extent, I believe that there are problems on ground, but they are not surmountable. You talked about the change of service chiefs. I have maintained that the only person who is in position to change the service chief is Commander-in-Chief. Maybe he has information we don't have, but to the general public, these people are not, they have done their best according to the president, but their best is not good enough. So what do we do to come out of this quagmire? I believe that even if you change the service chief, there's two schools of thoughts. Even if you change the service chiefs now, under the present operating circumstance and environment, there's not going to be any change. Our military and security services are ill-equipped, they're under-equipped, they're understaffed, just like any other sector of our polity. You talk of economy, with this pandemic also coming in, it becomes a problem. But we have to move forward.
Therefore,
we need
when you say
the Nigerians, we need the support of Nigerians.
Mr. Therefore, this picture, both of you have painted a bleak picture. But I know that Nigerians, and indeed the rest of Africa and the world that are watching, will be looking to say, because a lot of people have said it, if Nigeria is not at peace, Africa will be very, very unstable. So what do we do? How do we move forward to get all of these sorted? Short-handed? No, not enough personnel, not enough equipment, intelligence sharing, interagency relations. The president's given that directive, re-strategize or rework their security architecture in the entire country. Is that a pointer to maybe something like state police or a breakdown of the structure so that it's easier to manage?
You see, like the president said, that they should go and re-strategize. I don't know who is going to re-strategize. Is it the NSA or these various agencies to re-strategize? We have had a lot of stories on changing of tactics and strategies, and yet results on ground are not commensurate to to the challenges we have. So it's a big problem, and if you look at the issue of take for instance, everybody is worried. Nigerians are worried. Like you said, Nigeria, if there's any major political security problem in Nigeria, the West African sub-region, not only the West African sub-region, the whole continent, the world will be affected because of Nigeria's strategic position. And that is why it's important that we are collaborating. This terrorism is a global war. It cannot be fought by one country. So we are collaborating with other countries and trying to find solutions. In terms of support, America, for instance, has been of assistance providing aircrafts. We are purchasing aircraft like the Tucano aircraft, but these things take a lot of time before they arrive. They are not things you buy off the shelf. My problem now is that we must look for local solutions to our problems, and this includes restructuring not just the country, but the security agencies and apparatus. For instance, you talk about state police. The only one of the major solutions to our problem is decentralization of the security agencies, the police in particular. Because, like Onyekachi said, you see people finding problems, whether to take side with government or take side with the terrorists. If we have this problem that you have people who are very conversant with their localities, the confidence there for the security agencies to build on confidence of people is there. But now, you take somebody, for instance, from Maiduguri to Bayelsa, or take somebody from Bayelsa to Sokoto, you have challenges of language, ethnic differences, religious biases, and building confidence. People are not confident. Okay, I'll give you another example. Most of the people operating in the Southeast, most of the policemen operating in the Southeast, the general belief is that they are to make money, that they even buy their postings to go to that place. So they don't have confidence of the people. We need to restructure our security, rejig our security architecture to yield result. As we operate now, we have problems of equipment, we have problems of understaffing, and the states should be involved. If you recall that most states now, most state governments, even take their security in their hands, by providing vehicles for the security agencies. So we need, in summary, we need to restructure our security architecture for us to get results.
Onyekachi, he did say that our side seems to be underfunded, among other issues that we have. And we also hear that approximately 240 billion naira is spent as security vote every year without transparency. Would this money have helped us in any way in this fight to equip these people who are in the forefront of protecting our lives?
I think that we're now delving a bit into a political discourse. First of all,
the matter of security vote is a political one.
To some extent. To some extent. First of all, security is not cheap, very expensive. Number two, I do agree with the retention of the security vote under some cloak of secrecy, because there are certain things, like Mr. Jaffor said, you don't bring to the fore. Now, it becomes very dicey. You want transparency and you want security. It has to be properly managed, which is why in advanced country, take for instance the American Senate Committee on Intelligence would have everything on mask before them, so that you can then enshrine the principles of secrecy and then you deal with the issue of security. That's
Transparency.
why even government documents are also classified. Now, that 240 billion, as purported, is an aggregation of the annual security votes spent across the 36 states plus the FCT by the executive and by the presidency. So when you convert that to dollars, you're probably not spending so much because we also have to import equipment from outside. So I do think that
$670 million,
thereabouts.
approximately.
Okay, so, we just talked about purchasing 20 Super A5 Tucano jets. The military needs several MiG, maybe Mi-35 helicopter gunships, which they are not getting. I hear just now that the military and the Air Force have signed a new pact to now jointly collaborate better to address the issues of insecurity. And they are saying in the next 90 days, the issues of insecurity will be addressed. And I was laughing. That's not going anywhere. The landmass you have to cover. You have aerial surveillance drone that can't stay up more than 2 hours, 4 hours. More, they have to come back to base. Some of them don't have night vision capability. Even if they have, the space they have to cover is too big for the paucity of equipment that they have. So no, sir, I don't agree. In 90 days, we will come back full circle again. The issues of insecurity will continue. As long as we continue the present setup, we are not going anywhere. Okay, so yes, some governors are beginning to say, okay, I don't need the security votes to the extent to which have been allotted. We'll use some to give back to the community. I think Rochas Okroja was said to have been spent out of security votes. Governor Shea Makinde said to have been. If you look at the case of Ogun State, the man had an armory. The past governor of Ogun State had an armory where he had over 1,000 AK-47 rifles in the state armory. Then the issue of end-user certificate became a bit of a thorny issue in our national discourse. To some extent, yes. But if you look at states like Lagos State, Anambra State, Rivers State, almost every state in Federation, if the states are not funding the police, the Nigerian police as cities today would collapse and not be able to serve the people. So I'm not holding brief for anybody, but I agree with Mr. Ejiofor that clearly the 1960 setup, in fact, as of 1960, we had a decentralized security structure. It was after the coups and checkered history of the military that we now went into a full unitary system of government, which is almost what we're still running. I don't think we're fully a federal republic yet, because the states can make laws, they can adjudicate these laws, but they cannot enforce laws. So even in terms of structuring, we have a defective structure in this country. In this 2020, we are over 200 million people. The diversity is not what it used to be before. There is desertification affecting the Northeast. Before the insurgency, the Northeast had the largest cattle herding population anywhere in Africa. But those herders have to move. So they've moved down towards the South, North, Central. You're now seeing flare-ups, which is caused by two things: desertification and insurgency. So there's a complete destabilization of some fundamental decision-making structures we relied on before Nigeria became what it is today. So things have to shift fundamentally for us to address some of these issues. And let me make a point. When people come out to maybe lampoon and lambast the military, I say this with every sense of duty. You don't have any right to. You can face leadership and political leadership. People who put themselves every day in the firing line to defend fatherland and to protect the integrity of this country deserve our respect and our support. If people get the security they deserve, I think that our collective conspiracy of silence on the issues of security are part of the reasons why we're where we are. For example, the 13 soldiers and 3 officers that lost their lives, those are Nigerians. They didn't deserve to die. Give the military man the fighting chance. His morale will be very high. Our soldiers are doing more by sheer will and grit and personal sacrifice than we can ever imagine. And so some of the gains we are seeing on the ground all comes down to the gallantry of our fighting men not just because they are very well resourced. So I know there's positive fund in the budget. So that's why when Mr. Jofo talked about looking for local solutions, we must all come down from our high horses and understand that every approach to security must be local. So let's calm down and find, look, we can talk, stay here, talk the whole day on the issue of security. In 2016, the president had a summit on security. Some of the communiques from that summit, how many of it has been implemented? We have a 2019 National Security Strategy that focuses on human security as a key pillar upon which national security will pivot. You can't deal with human security if you're not talking about employment opportunities, you're not talking about welfare of the people, health care. I mean, what's the unemployment rate in Nigeria now before COVID-19? So there are a number of issues, and these issues are fueling insecurity. Okay, so
Let me put this to you.
Yes.
This matter of the structure as it is.
Yes.
So Ahmad Sambo says, changing the service chiefs is not our problem. Our problems are corruption, favoritism, religious bias, and promotion issues in the security agencies of the country. He says, there are many security officers or agents that deserve promotion, but they don't get it because of one reason or the other. So you
Yes.
find out that someone, you and I graduated at same class,
Yes.
but I am at a certain level, you have gone like 5 levels because of where you
come from.
where you come from or where you worship. So that thing about merit is no longer as obvious as it used to be. Ahmed says that's a major problem, not changing of service chiefs. That and the fact that the funding you talked about, who handles this? Executive, legislature? Who?
we won't leave here if we talk about the funding. But you see, what Ahmed talked about is some of the problems that we have. When it comes to funding, I mean, politics and politicians, again, become the problem. Take, for instance, the NDDC case and the Senate. The senators and the reps, House of Rep members, are the ones that draft the budget. They are to supervise the budget drafting process and even oversight implementation. But where the senators themselves become beneficiaries to some of those contracts, already Nigerians have been so short.
Okay. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Mr. Gia, for that matter of issues within the structure, promotion, biases, favoritism, and funding, how do we resolve all of this? We'll do that when we come back from this break. Just stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're still looking at this matter of security. Now, Mr. Ejiofor, before we went on that break, I said when we come back, we'll look at the question of issues within the infrastructure, within the structure of not just the military this time, the police, the NCDC, the DSS, issues of favoritism, no promotion when you deserve to get promoted, corruption. How are all of this affecting their workings, and what can be done to resolve it?
Well, the resolution of these challenges you have put us is complex. I give you an example. You know, like you said in your intro, you join the service with one other person. Is promoted far and above yourself for obvious reasons, ethnic interest or religious biases. This was not very prevalent in the armed forces until recently. You see people, junior people retiring under very senior officers. This kills morale and professionalism. It's a very big challenge. You can see soldiers almost getting to the point of mutiny. So to solve this particular problem of welfare, promotion, I think everybody has talked about it. The National Assembly has spoken about it. The Governors Forum has spoken about it. Civil society organizations calling for the removal of service chiefs. I am not calling for the removal of service chiefs, but I believe that when there's a change, there will be a motion, there will be a movement. People are retiring, generals are retiring because the ones heading the services are still there. It kills morale and professionalism. Besides that, promotion is stagnated. And that is why you see younger officers or junior officers, soldiers, rising to the point of mutiny. So that issue must be addressed if we must get results on this issue. Then you talk of welfare. How do you explain that you now send soldiers to go and fight? They are not well equipped. Today, we hear that, especially from the spokespersons of the various services, you see a lot of people. Today, you hear 900 insurgents have been killed. Tomorrow, you hear what? And I ask, how many are these people that you continue to kill 100, 300, 400 weekly, and yet we are not getting results? We need to change the leadership of the various agencies. I'll give you an example. When the SSS and the Inspector General, the leadership of SSS and the police was changed, there is improvement in their operations. When you stay in a place, there's if you permit me, there's a proverb in Benin that when a fly stays so much in the toilet, when you stay so much in the toilet, you see a fly with coat. You feel big flies. So these people have stayed. We must appreciate what they have done. They have done their best, but the result is not showing. So we need to try new hands. The president needs to check that so that younger officers will come up with fresh ideas. Like I said before, we also need to check the welfare of the staff, payment of the allowances. You talk of security votes and all the budgetary allocations. The question is, out of the budgetary allocations, what percentage is released for them? You know, it's difficult to deal with the security agencies in terms of budgetary allocation and oversight, because it's not like where you have works and other ministries that you can pad and get to this place. The security agencies will definitely submit what they require. One, they will not get the necessary releases, and beside that, they also have corruption in the leadership, that people will divert funds meant for either staff welfare, salaries. I can tell you on authority that most of the security services don't have money. Our military and security agencies, they don't have money for capital expenditure. They rely more on recurrent. So how do you expect to win such a war? It's a problem. And that is why we are looking at, solutions. Decentralize the police. Decentralize the police in particular, because they are in the forefront of maintenance of internal security. If you don't get that done, you continue to operate that. Okay, look at, we have security challenges, and
I beg your pardon, Mr. Ejiofor. Are you referring to state policing? Are you referring to state policing?
Yeah, well, the Inspector General of Police has introduced community policing, but it goes beyond that, because who controls the community policing? It has no control. But if you bring state police, which I've always been advocating, it brings security closer to the people. You mobilize the people, and they have confidence in working with you. As it is now, we are not going to get any result. We need, the center is too strong, where IG will be here giving instruction to the Commissioner of Police. You look at the governor, you say you are the chief security officer of the state. You cannot take order from him. I was privileged at least to be a state director in about 8 states in this country. If you are not dancing to the whims and caprices of the chief executive, just forget it. You will never get cooperation from him. But if he is in charge, he has the power to fire and hire. But as it is now, is the command, the control is from the headquarters, and you continue to see changes, transfers of state commissioners of police and others. And this does not augur well, because it disrupts continuity and flow of operations.
Onyekachi, we have talked over several years, we have debated, we have looked at the pros and cons of state policing. Is it time for us to begin to actually look at that as a viable option? We have seen many states come up with their community policing outfits, but they have all seemed to, they're all very quiet. We haven't heard anything, well, we haven't heard much from them since all the fanfare of setting them up and all that. So where are we in this?
Unfortunately, we are far behind where we should be. We are talking about issues that we should have dealt with, say 20 years ago, and moved on to other issues of even community policing. Now we are trying to put the cart before the horse. Wanting to bring community policing, presently as constituted, will not achieve anything. The constable is not an employee of the federal government or the states. He is not paid. He would not be armed. He will have his uniform. He would be tasked to do what any citizen can do by the Constitution, effect a civilian arrest and hand over to the police. So we're not going anywhere. So by now we should have gone beyond. People talk and say in Nigeria, we are not matured enough, we are not this, we are not that. And I beg to ask a question. How is the current situation different under the federal government? How will it be any different from under the states? We will go to a process and mature in it. We can properly constitute a state police board. We have retired senior police officers who can come and set these things up. Lagos State has shown how LASMA can work. So it's doable. We shouldn't be having this conversation. The fact that we are having this conversation shows how far behind we are in these issues. Unfortunately, people are paying every day in this country with their lives. People die every day in this country, and we have become numb as a society to the fact that people die. People die needlessly. The amount of kidnapping, vehicle jacking, kidnap for ransom, the farmer herders clashes. I saw the local government chairman of Zango Kataf, who was talking on air. I mean, you could see in his whole demeanor, the guy was already very helpless. We all look to Abuja for security. Meanwhile, we can make security a campaign matter with our state governors. Right now, the state governors will tell you they are handicapped. The then Zamfara state governor resigned as CSO of the state because he said, hey, look here, I don't have the control of the apparatus of state. The governor of Borno, who said that he may ask for, I'm sure he was joking, may ask for the military to be pulled out so that they can send in hunters. This is not a matter for hunters. So, I mean, across the country...
It just points to the fact that how frustrated he is with the situation.
He is frustrated. If he is frustrated as a governor of resources, how frustrated are the battalion commanders at the front lines? What logistics support do they have? Now the army is now muting up an issue of army aviation, which I think is something we should have done by now. The army should have its own air unit. It should have its own air unit. Should have its own surveillance units. Every super camp should be set up with platforms that will give them eyes and ears beyond their camps. It is not a joke when we tell you that the army on routine patrols sometimes are flying blind, because when they pull out from their bases, some people will inform the other side that these guys are moving. You can't see what's on the other side.
So is it possible that there are saboteurs within the structure itself?
We are talking about competence, not competence, we're talking about capability to protect. Where would the people align? Where would they fall to? Do they feel more confident that the government has the wherewithal to respond and to protect them? Now, by pulling back to super camps, we're saving equipment, yes. We're saving manpower, we're saving life, yes. But then that leaves with a lot of ungoverned spaces and then slows down the response time. The challenge now is when you want to respond, you need to go on those roads, which is why the military introduced moving out on bikes and having to be able to at least meander around some of these traps they are faced with. So the issues for me, I think, Maybe we're not going to get it until the next administration. I don't think we'll get it right. But some of us are beginning to propose that maybe we are right for a situation where we have a national security advisor who is not ex-service anything. Let's have now a renewed thinking, a policy-first approach, so that when the Navy is bringing up the idea, there's no bias. When the Army is bringing up the, no bias. When the DSS is saying this is what we need, no bias. When the police is saying what, there's no bias. There's no traditional way of thinking. There's no constituency to fall back to. It's all, let us come. That's why you're seeing this interagency rivalry, that the inconsistency in collaboration. Because at the peak of the person that brings the advice into the president, at that very peak, you know, some things are not the way it should be. So when the NSA said he has been charged, so where would he start from? The DSS has several operations running. The police has several operations running. The Army has several operations running. Which one will he begin to review? How do we go from here? So what exactly does he want to do in 3 years' time? We can't solve Nigeria's security problem in the next 5 years. I dare say, no, we cannot. And if we continue like this, you know, by 2030, I think we're estimated to outgrow the US in population size. Then Nigeria is estimated to become 350 million. Just imagine when we are 350 million, what space do the farmers have to farm? What space would the herders have to herd?
Mr. Jeffo, the way forward, I mean, low-hanging fruits, what can we do? Professor Monokai says, all hands must be on deck to checkmate the alien security lapses. He says, if we change the service chiefs without restructuring the security architecture of our policy, its workings, and it'll still be hopeless. Ayatunde Richard says, Boko Haram is basically foot soldiers. Therefore, Nigeria's military should invest more in airstrikes as there is no terrain in the air that is difficult and inaccessible instead of wasting the lives of our foot soldiers. Festus Akimbo says, technology can help us improve our security tremendously. Our forests are not as thick as they are in many countries, but they are able to use technology to police their forests effectively. Mr. Dior, for low-hanging fruit as we wind down, what would it be?
We just have to restructure our security architecture for us to achieve results. We need, the president needs to look inwards, get bills, sponsor bills, executive bills to the National Assembly to enable us have the state police. As long as we continue to operate this centralized security architecture, we are not going to make results. I'll give you an example. You remember when Amotekun was set up? Within the first 2 weeks, as we speak, they've not started operating. But because of show of force with their vehicles and everything, crime tended to renew. And I hope and pray they will take the initiative to start full operations in the Southwest. Because once they started, you saw that they now migrated to Delta, Edo, and the rest of the states. So every state must take responsibility. The argument that it will be abused by the state governors does not hold water. Because as we speak, the federal police, the Nigeria police, is also being abused by the executive at all levels. So, but there must be gaps, there must be checks and balances to check whatever the state chief executive has done if the state police is in operation. That's my submission.
The way forward.
The way forward. Well, I think I agree with Mr. Michael Jofo, but I just say that everybody should sit up and hold their belts very well. There's no quick fix. There's no quick fix. We can only start to progress when we take back the approach to security down to the local communities, down back to the states, and then hope that we can find ingenious, context-based programs that can help us address some of the issues of security. But I would just say in closing that without economic prosperity and development, there can be no security. And without security, there can be no economic prosperity and development. So whoever wears the cap as governor or as CEC, he has his work cut out for him.
Professor Enekana, our population has outgrown the number of security per individual ratio approved by the UN. This has some egregious long-term effect on how to cushion the near-security anarchy coupled with Al-Qaeda now infiltrating in northern Nigeria. We must act fast now. So, I'd just like to thank our guests. We had Mr. Mike Ejiofor, former director of the DSS, who joined us from our studio in Abuja, as well as Mr. Onyekachi Adekoya, a security consultant. Thank you very much for joining us this morning to look at these issues. Well, we hope that those who are supposed to take decisions on this are listening to you guys, because you are supposed to be the experts, and we hope that our situation will begin to improve very soon in our country. North, south, east, west. Insurgency, kidnappings, herder farmers clashes. We hope that we'll begin to see a reduction, if not an end, to all of this. Thank you very much. Sunrise will be right back in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Stay with us.